Hi, this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I am Siofra Bradigan. Today I'd like to talk about tools, the magical tools that a lot of us use. If you don't use these tools, then you can skip this lesson. That's fine. But if you're curious as to what other people use, then here you go. First, I guess we'll start with the air, because the air at the beginning seems appropriate somehow. And for me, the tool of the air is the knife, or Athame. And this is my Athame. Everyone has a different style, a different kind of knife that they like. It's traditionally not curved like mine is. Mine has got a couple of curves in it. But this clearly was my knife when I found it in a shop in Santa Cruz one day. Many years ago now. It has a black horn handle, and it was made by hand by somebody who was really feeling what they were doing. And the goat horn is appropriate for me because I'm Capricorn. And then they carved it into the shape of a black panther, and the panther is one of my power animals. So when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's my knife. And what I did, we'll talk about consecrating all of your tools and stuff later, but I made my own strap for it. The more energy and time you can put into a tool that you're using or making, the more of your own personality and energy it'll absorb. So it becomes yours. And also by doing that, you're letting the universe know that you appreciate it, the gift, and you value it enough to spend your time and energy in making it work even better. As a matter of fact, this Athame was starting to rust because I did not know, one, it was steel and it didn't have a coating on it, so it wasn't like stainless steel. And, you know, they talk about putting it in water when you're stirring your cup, and water and metal makes rust. So I was getting pock marks in it. I was like, oh no, I've ruined my knife. And we bought a kit for plating, and my husband figured out how to nickel plate my Athame, so I didn't end up having to get another one, for which I was grateful. The other thing that's perfect for me is it's a very small handle. It fits my hand just as if it was made for it. And so, you know, my very first Athame was a silver letter opener that had an abalone shell head that was the shape of an eagle for the, I guess, can opener part maybe. And I really liked that a lot. So it doesn't have to be something sharp or anything like that. It's the important thing is that it's unique for you, something that resonates with you, the imagery. In my tradition, the knife is the tool of air, and my understanding of that is that it has to do with sort of the Indian approach to daggers and knives in their gods and goddesses in their pantheon. The idea of cutting through illusion, cutting through mental fog and confusion, being able to focus and concentrate, being pointed with that ability to just focus on a single item or goal at a time. And so, you know, you can use your Athame for drawing the circle and for evoking the elements. So you would use it like we were doing with the diagram previously, so you would just imagine the energy coming out of the tip of the blade, and it's an extension of your will. All of your tools are an extension of your will. And it's one of the things about them is that it helps you to develop that peculiar and unique relationship that only you can have with the universe and the beings and spirits and gods and goddesses and energies that you choose to work with or that would like to work with you. So, little point of etiquette as we talk about our tools: if you are in another witch's house and she has her tools out or at a public ritual, it's extremely bad form to pick up someone else's magical objects without permission. And a lot of times you won't get permission because it's a personal tool. It's like asking them to take their clothes off in front of you the first time you meet. There's a trust that has to develop. And sometimes it's for your own safety, because if a tool has been used for a long time and really charged up, if you aren't prepared for that particular kind of energy, it can do you harm. And most witches are cognizant of that. They want to make sure that they're not damaging their students or random people that are walking up and down the street. So don't pick it up. That's my advice. So that would be the Athame. And, you know, if you can buy it new, that's awesome. If you can find someone like I did who makes their own, that's awesome too. There's more of those types of artisans out there nowadays than when I first started. I got my this Athame in the 86, 87, somewhere around there. And so, you know, things have changed a lot. You can probably even find them online. It doesn't matter whether you get to handle it personally or not before you get it. The important thing is how you treat it once you get it. And we'll talk about ways of banishing energies from used items on another video. And then consecrating those items to your personal use. Today is just sort of a general discussion of those tools that are the most common in most practices. So the second tool is the one for fire, which is the wand. Now this is my first wand. I am one of those people that, for me, I don't have little wands. There's this instructions. You're supposed to, your wand is supposed to be measured from, you know, your elbow to the end of your middle finger, and that's the appropriate length to have for a wand. I say whatever feels right for you is the appropriate length. And this was an important magical experience on a lot of levels when I cut this wand. Some people like to just pick sticks up out of the ground or off the ground and feel that they're not harming the tree that way. But for me, this is how my particular unique tradition got started. I lived in the woods, up in the bush of northern British Columbia at the time, and the cedar tree that was near the house was a trapper's cabin that we were squatting in, as it were. And I used to meditate at the base of the cedar tree pretty much every day. There was a nice little stream there. There were 3 other trees. It was sort of a perfect little grove with grass underneath in the deep woods. And it was just a great place to sit and start to connect with the earth itself. And then we had to leave that place. The Forest Service decided they were going to come in and burn the cabin down, and they were going to log it. And I was very upset with that because I had made friends with that cedar tree. I had connected with it on an emotional level, and I knew that they were going to kill it. And one of the issues of having close friends with the tree people, and the standing people, as the natives sometimes call them, is that 1, you always know where they are, but 2, sometimes they go away and you don't have any control over it. So I went and I talked to the tree and told it how I felt, and asked it if I could take a piece of its spirit with me in the form of the wood. And then I made a date to come back. I think I cut it on a new moon. And the day came along for me to go and cut the wood, and it was pouring rain. We were getting one of the deluges that they get up there. It's like being in a rainforest. It's a weird thing with pine trees. And so I could have gone, I don't feel like doing that. But at that point, I knew that keeping your word, especially if you've made a magical promise to do something magical, is really important. This is kind of how the universe decides what you're made out of. And so I got on my slicker and I drove through the valley, and I got to the tree and stood under the tree and talked to the tree and touched the tree. and it indicated that this branch would be the branch that I should take. And so I cut it, and then I went home with it, and I immediately started to peel the bark off, and I oiled it, and I sang to it, and just was with it for the rest of the day. And so this has become a very personal and important tool. And it is also a tool of will, in the sense that the energy that you put out of it is, you're pushing the energy out of it and interacting with that energy. And fire, as a fire tool, some people have an issue with wood and fire because they think of fire more as an actual thing, like the fire itself that consumes the wood. But when we're working with fire, we're working with it on an elemental level. So we're working with the energy that the literal fire represents, not the literal fire itself. And so the fire it represents is that willfulness, creativity, strength. It's like a heat, inner heat kind of thing. And in some other things that I've done in the past, I've used this to burn away things that are causing problems with other people. So a non-literal, imaginary, but strongly imagined fire comes out of it and will sort of burn away attachments or connections or negative energy that is causing someone else harm. You can use this to cast circles as well. Not everyone uses a wand to cast a circle. Apparently, we went to one group where they had never thought of doing that before, and they were pretty excited to discover that you might be able to use a wand to call in the directions and cast a circle. We're going to do a whole series just on the different kinds of wands that I've made since, but this is my first wand, and it is the thing that informs my practice. Because of this first experience with living wood and a living spirit, all of my wands are like that. Every single one of them is alive and connected to the tree that gave the branch to me, and I work with their spirit. So I treat them with great respect because they're living beings, not just a hunk of wood. So I'm not the kind of practitioner that would feel comfortable buying a wand from someone else, because I want to be connected to the tree as much as possible. I'm okay if there's someone I know really well who knows how I like to harvest the wood and can cut it for me in that sort of conscious and sacred way. And that would be different. But that's the wand. And this one just has a regular kind of case just to kind of keep it from getting all dusty and covered up with stuff. And I didn't have a silk that was strong enough or long enough for this one. Silk is a good thing to cover your magical objects with because it helps to keep the energy in and keep other energy out. So going around the circle, the next direction is the west, which is the water element. And you've seen my personal cup. This is a cup that I use in my own personal altar. It's not like the group cup. And I bought this in a store and started using it. So, it doesn't have to be handmade. This one, however, I made. I just thought it'd be really neat to sort of create our own group cup. And I went to a local, what do they call them, pottery place. Like, you can buy a piece of greenware and then you can decorate it the way you want, paint it, and then they'll fire it in their kiln for you. So you don't have to have everything yourself, which is nice. And so I decided what design I wanted to have. And so I'm Irish descent, so the Celtic stuff is something that I like and I'm attracted to. So I did a Celtic water horse on one side, and then I did a peacock in a Celtic knot style on the other side, because for me the animal of the West has become the peacock. I wasn't sure why, but that's the way it was. And then just sort of a general kind of design on there, and made it the colors that I associated with the water element. And so when we're doing group rituals, we use this cup for what, the saltwater cleansing, when we're blessing everybody coming into the circle and cleansing ourselves as a group. And then our personal cups are things that we use for, like, the drink, the shared drink at the end of a ritual, and for, like, the saltwater purification, self-purification thing I showed you earlier. So it's just out of my imagination. And the cup, of course, is the tool of water because it gives the water a shape, something that it can stay in. And that's, when you're working with water, you want to have something for it to conform to. Water is interesting that way. And so, you can have a cup on your personal altar. You can keep water in it all the time if you want to, or you can put water in it only when you need it. But whether it's empty or full, it still represents the element of water because of its shape and, again, how you treat it. So that would be our group cup. So then the fourth element is earth, and the pentagram is the tool of earth, even though we also use it for all of the other elements. It's associated with the earth very strongly because it's like the combination of all the five elements, the earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, making something solid that is manifest in the earth itself. And you can use other things to represent the earth, like salt or a stone or something like that. But it's harder to describe how you use this as a tool in a single way, because we use this particular tool for about everything we do. When we're creating our circle, when we're banishing negative energies, when we're sealing up a place, when we're doing protection, things around our bodies, around our house, and everything. So it's sort of harder, like the knife and the wand and the cup are easier, simpler tools to grasp and get a handle on. Some people, because of that, also use the cauldron as a representative of the earth too. But the cauldron doubles not just for earth, but also for spirit. Cauldron, in most mythologies, like in the Celtic mythology, Caradwyn has a cauldron of rebirth that she puts the dead in, and then they come back out. And the Dagda also has a cauldron. His is a cauldron of plenty, where he's always making food for the tribe and for the people. And it's a magic cauldron, so it never runs out. So people can eat as much as they want, but there's always more coming in at the other side. And so the cauldron, representing Akasha or spirit or the center of things, I've done sometimes rituals where I put the cauldron in the middle of the circle, and then you have to be careful not to knock it over, because it's really easy to knock over and forget that you have this big thing sitting there. And I have different kinds of cauldrons. This is our sort of group cauldron. You can burn things in it when you're doing certain kinds of rituals. Put a layer of Epsom salts and pour in some alcohol, and then it becomes a contained place of fire. My personal cauldron is a small, it's called an early American gypsy pot, and it has a lid on it, which is nice. It's nice to have a cauldron with a lid, so then you can control the fire and put it out if it starts to get out of hand. You can buy cauldrons at the store as a cooking pot, and that may be where that idea originally happened, with the witches that were living in the woods, and the kitchen witch idea, where they would have their broom in the corner, which was their staff, or their wand, and their knife in the kitchen, and then they had their soup in the pot over the fire, and that was making their food and so forth. So sometimes groups will actually make a dinner in a cauldron too, sort of that, with that idea in mind, making a communal meal out of it. We also have a brass cauldron that I found in the secondhand store, and I use that to charge up the water on the full moon, because brass isn't going to be destroyed by water like cast iron and water don't mix. And so it's you can use it for a variety of things. The notion, or the thing to remember, is that all of these represent a type of energy and an approach to that energy. And those are clues when you're learning and when you're practicing, regardless of how much practice you've had, to create a deeper understanding of the tool and its uses and how it works for you. So I hope you found this interesting and useful. This is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. Blessed be.